and work with us to get the job done. And Lord, right now we ask you to bless us spiritually, mentally, physically, and you've already met our need. You woke us up this morning. Now keep us safe, Lord, and bless the state of Louisiana. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I've learned in my life that prayer changes things. Amen. And wow, you know, when I think about this, I have to make sure that I don't, you know, the picture in the newspaper showed Pat and I hugging and crying together because it was a journey. But we have a saying about what we do is no surrender, no retreat. Can I get you to say that? No surrender, no retreat. No surrender, no retreat. And guess what? If you do that and work that, God will work things out for you. My name is Checo Yancy, and it's an opportunity, a great opportunity to have this speech today. And when I met Quentin Anthony Anderson, he said, nobody calls me by my full name, but brother, you're doing a great job. Okay, and your mom is proud. You know, as I was thinking about this, I said, you know, it's lunchtime, people are hungry, and I'm hungry too, because I want to vote. And my little granddaughter doesn't know my prison years. I spent 20 years in Angola. At one time, I had a life sentence that said I'd never, ever be free. But how many of you know that God has the final say so? You know, my sentence was commuted to a term of 75 years, and they say that I won't get off of parole until 2056. So that means I would never get an opportunity to vote. And as Representative Smith was speaking, you know, it brought back some memories of, in front of that committee, the mean-spirited people about voting. You know, why can't I vote and I pay taxes? And I never forget Representative Abbott asked me, he said, well, you know, you can get your gun rights. I said, I don't want a gun. I want to be able to pull the lever. That's going to be my gun. Because I figure that voting can change the landscape. But I want to challenge you in here today with your neighbors. How many of you know that we spend a lot of money on election, but people don't turn out? I want to say it again. We spend a lot of money on elections and people do not show up. And I want to talk to my people of color in here. Do you know that people died to get the right to vote? Do you know people got beat up, dogs put on them? And now we won't even go out and vote. Our slogan with vote is going to be, I will beat you to the polls. You're laughing when you hear that. When you hear that again, notice you heard it first here. Well, I will beat you to the polls because, you know, Norris Henderson and I, we both were in Angola together. He had a life sentence. He slept right across from me, and we put this together in prison. It was called the Angola Special Civics Project. And then out here now, we have an organization called VOTE. It's 3 acronyms, you know, you can call this. We started out with VOTE as Voice of the Ex-Offender. Well, that didn't go over too good. So we changed it and said Voice of the Experience. Yes. See, I have experience about being in prison. I spent 20 years, 7,309 days. Norris spent 27 years in prison. But look what God is doing, what we're doing, the work that we're doing. We're trying to change the community, help, as Pat said, she met him on the back of an ice truck, and he lives in New Orleans, but he was here helping people. We're about helping people. You know, the gentleman back there, Mr. Wyndham, I worked for him for 6 years doing reentry. You know, I was thinking, Representative Smith, the other day, we were actually meeting. Now, I'm on parole. My officer asked me, well, how's it going? Down at the Capitol. And I'm saying, wow, you're my officer, you know. But the thing about it is, we were meeting the other day with Secretary Jimmy LeBlanc. We were meeting with the Register of Voters Office. We were meeting with the Secretary of State Office and Probation and Parole so we can register people. Now, on parole, this is going to be about 2,000 to 3,000 people that's going to be eligible to come March the 1st, 2019. But people that's on probation, it's close to 43,000. think you realize we always said 71,000, but I think about Senator Clayton that day, and I'll never forget, I was in the hallway politicking, and, you know, we've learned. John had been with us and teaching us what to do, and, you know, we'd grab anybody, senator, representative, and talk to them, and I had to tell them my story, that I am the elephant in the room. I am the person that's been incarcerated, but I've been out 15 years now. I pay taxes. I've never gotten in any trouble, and if nobody don't be bothered with me, guess what? I don't want to be bothered with them. You know, and I'm about public safety also. But my little granddaughter, she said, Papa, why you can't go vote? I said, Papa, I've been in prison. She said, no, Papa ain't never been in no prison. Well, she's only 10 years old, so she knows nothing about that. But now when I called her and told her, Papa will be able to vote next year, she was crying with me. My Papa can vote. But, you know, if we can get everybody to vote and go to the polls, and remember I started saying, no surrender, no retreat. No surrender, no retreat. And if you put that in your life, because we did that in prison, the warden spoke for me to get out. Who knows you better than the people that keep you those 20 years? But I want you to understand something. I've been punished. I've been corrected. I was rehabilitated when I got to Angola. I'll never forget that day. December 27, 1984 at 11:17. 11:18, I was rehabilitated. I know it wasn't the place I wanted to be. I had earned my way there, and I was guilty of the crime that I committed. And I'll never forget when I cried out to God and asked for some help. God asked me a simple question: what part did you play? And when I admitted that I was guilty of my crime, God got in my business, and he helped me, and I still had to spend time in prison, but I got a chance to meet the judge that convicted me. On the walk, he was doing prison ministry. And as we hugged and I told him who I was, he wanted to get away from it, but I told him I'm not that same person in 1983. God has changed my life. And all he could talk about, he met somebody that he sentenced to a life sentence that was not bitter. How many of you know when you make a mistake, you have to be forgiven for it? We have to learn to forgive people. And then meeting the judge that sentenced me, then I got a chance to come outside and speak and everything, and then I got out of prison. And that same judge, him and I have had lunch together with Warden Kane. I hold no animosity against him because I was guilty of my crime. But I'm not the same person. We have to learn to forgive people. There are some good men and some good women that made a mistake. And I know everybody in here has never made a mistake. I know everybody's perfect in here. So I'm not talking about you, but I know some men and women that have changed their lives. That it costs, you know, it actually costs a lot of money to keep people incarcerated. Mm-hmm. And you know, I was thinking today when they were talking about the flood and all that today, think about this. You see it on TV, you see they have prisoners coming out, working on the street and picking up garbage, helping people and everything, but those same people don't want them released back. Something's wrong with that picture. But we have to really look at, you know, working with Representative Smith, we've been trying to do this. And Representative Smith, I want to tell you something. I want you to think about this. Norris and I was talking about this as we were driving. We were going somewhere. We were going to Lafayette or somewhere. And, you know, this bill 3 times. Think about it. Jesus had to stay 3 days. 3 times. We got 31 votes the first time. She was devastated. But we were telling her, don't worry about it. We're going to still be here. We're going to get this thing done. And she said, you know, I let you guys down. She never let us down because she's our shero. She is our shero because she was fighting for us. So we had to politic. We had to get with people. I learned what emotion is laying on the table, and somebody else has to bring it up. And then when you get Sherman Mack, who is opposed to everything, to bring it up. Because Danahy really brought it up first to help Representative Smith. Then Sherman Mack came, and we got back in the committee. But 3 times, we got 31 votes, then we got 54 votes, and then finally we got over the hill 60-something votes. We picked up double the votes. Tell me what God can't do. Yes. We picked up double the votes by just staying the course and trusting the Lord. Trusting God. You know, we were sitting on the Senate side, and I welcome you to go to the archives of the legislature and look at Senator Dan Clay, that I had to really talk to every day and beg him for a vote and all of that. He would never say what he was going to do. We actually had letters, and we're going to be showing something very soon to everybody. I'm going to send it out to this committee, to this group here. We have the NFL Players Association that's working with us now, because they're tired of mass incarceration across this country. Yes. We got a letter from Reverend Pat Nolan, and I tried to give Senator Clay one of the letters. You know what he told me? He said, I don't know no Drew Brees and all that. He said, who I know is Checo that comes out and been working. A God thing. A God thing. And then that day when he was on the podium there, I didn't know what he was going to say. Nobody knew what he was going to say. We were trying to count votes. We were trying to do all of this. And by the way, a God thing, Senator Yvonne Dorsett Long was in the hospital. So we needed that vote. She came to the Capitol that day to vote for that bill. To vote for that bill. A God thing. I mean, you know, ladies and gentlemen, I believe God can do anything but fail. You know, this state we're in a disarray. It might take the form incarcerated with their vote to change the things. Because I'm for public safety. You know, I'm not going to stand up here and tell you, I know some guys, I should not have been out of prison in 1983 because I did something I had no business doing. But I never got a write-up in prison. I graduated from college while I was in prison. I did everything that I was supposed to do in prison, except I couldn't get out. And then God sent a man to help me, Governor Evans, that cut my time. For a time like this. Then when I look out and see one of my attorneys out here, Professor Armstrong there, yesterday we filed into our writ back in the state Supreme Court. Because the 5 years, it's okay, but we want to bring everybody there. We don't want to leave anybody behind. Because there are men this is going to affect, there's going to be women this is going to affect. When I look at the judge back there, we work together with reentry and helping people come back. You know, Secretary LeBlanc, when you look at this, what we are trying to do, if you're training men and women in prison to be better people, and then when they come out, people don't want to hire them. See, I haven't even told you about the barriers. Housing, getting a job, you know, just having a place to go. Sometimes churches don't even want you there. We have a group now called 70 times 7. Now, I know you know what 70 times 7 means, right? Yes. Remember what Jesus told Peter? How many times, Lord? 70 times 7. But we're trying now to work with the churches. We're getting ready to do all of this stuff, and it's former incarcerated people. And my friend John Burkhall there works with the SPLC. He's got the blue shirt on. That's what they started calling us, the blue shirts. Y'all know blue is Democrat. Think about it. Think about it. And I really got upset one day at the Capitol. Representative Steve Scalise was there. And one of the legislators hollered, "Hey, Governor, now you exposing your hand." So we got to get Bill Edwards reelected. Guess what? Come March 1st, 2019, I can register to vote. Now, I can't tell you who I'm going to vote for. But other day in the picture, I think I got one back there, we had over 150 people at the special bill signing. And they all had blue shirts on. Let me tell you what Governor Evans did. He went over in the middle of them and took a picture and said, "Y'all gonna remember this?" We said, "Yes, sir, we sure will." You know, this was historical. Last year we passed 10 bills for reform. This year the DAs and the sheriff. How many of you know the DAs and the sheriff are the most powerful people in this state? Mm-hmm. Even when you're doing a good job, they will try to bring you down. They said every kind of thing about Representative Smith, Representative Ted James, you know, the slave labor in prison. That story is about to come out. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. But we have to understand one thing. We have to survive now and cry later. Mm-hmm. Because my God is like oxygen. You can't see him, but you need him to survive. Mm-hmm. And because of God, I'm able to survive. You know, we could go on, but we passed a veterans bill. That a bill that was written in Angola by some guys in the law library, and Representative Kenny Cox worked that bill, passed that bill. As soon as that bill was passed, we got the pen from the governor, we got the bill that was signed, and we rode to Angola that night. The warden said, come on in, and we saw all the veterans up there, that they're going to have a chance to mentor veterans, incarcerated prisoners inside. That word, give them a round of applause for that. Because if you take a man, I am a veteran myself. I went in the military, most of you probably wasn't born. I went in the military in 1962. God willing, I'll be 73 this year. But what I'm saying is, when you get all of this, veterans bill, unanimous jury verdict, now we got voting rights. This is historical. Because, you know, the voting rights, what Representative Smith didn't say is, you know, in the Constitution, in the mean-spirited, the people called it the new Jim Crow. Racism, disenfranchisement, all of these things. But guess what? My God is changing this. And you got to get on board too. Now, how many people in here pray every day? How many of you pray every day? You know, and guess what? Prayer changes things. Amen. You know, I will never tell a person who to vote for, but I would always tell a person to go vote. I may suggest who a good candidate is, but I wouldn't tell a person who to vote for. And you know, as I wrap this up, because I know I can go on and on, you know, think about Alice Johnson. This lady that I call him 45. And I didn't vote for him, so I couldn't vote. But he did. He let this lady out of prison the other day. And when you saw that lady run to the arms of her loved ones, her grandmother, that's what freedom feels like. But now, freedom to me feels like that I can bring my little granddaughter and she can see Papa vote. And you know, I thank everybody, and I tell John all the time, he always says, my man Checo, and I try to keep telling him, it's team effort. What the people are doing today is bringing people together. And you know what team stands for? Together, everyone achieves the mission. Together, we can do things. You know, with Gina in here, everybody has different groups, and everybody want to get the credit for this and credit for that. I just happen to be the phase to it. But guess what? As I close, let me tell you what that phase to it can do. Representative Smith came to me in the heat of the battle and told me, she said, Checo, they're telling me about you. See, my crime was I had an aggravated kidnapping and attempt crime against nature, riding around the French Quarter in New Orleans about 3 o'clock in the morning looking for cheap sex, and I did something I had no business doing. I am guilty of that, but I'm a registered offender. And she said, they're saying you're going to make him your poster child, a sex offender, the worst scum of the earth, and it hurt me. But I knew one thing, God was still with us. And I said, well, we got to go for it. I called Norris, he was in North Carolina, and he said, hey, man, we're not going to leave anybody behind. Everybody knows your crime anyway. Let's roll with it. See, people don't know the hurt things that you go through, that my wife go through, that my children go through. But I want you to know one thing. God is good. And if you trust my God, if you trust him, God is like oxygen. You can't see him, but you sure need it. Thank you.